Hey, thanks for coming out. To our YouTube viewers, welcome as well. Glad to have you. I want to introduce our panel. We have Deputy Wisniewski from the Alpena County Sheriff's Department. We have Trooper Kunith, who is with the Michigan State Police. We have Officer Culligan, who is with City Police, and our prosecutor here in Alpena County, Cynthia Mushinsky. We have some organizations that are here with us tonight: Hope Shores Alliance, the Children's Advocacy Center, Catholic Human Services, and Alcona Health. And we'll do question and answer at the end. And we have Donna Hardees from Catholic Human Services, Sarah Heffley from Children's Advocacy Center, and Janine Kaltz from Hope Shores, who will help our panel with question and answer based on their own expertise. So again, thanks for coming out tonight, and turn it over to you.
All right, so we were hoping for a little bit bigger turnout tonight, so at the end when we have to applaud, you guys are really going to have to step it up, so we feel good about ourselves. But so we wanted to put this together. I've talked to the two officers here. There are school resource officers, one in the high school, one in the junior high, and we've talked about a lot of the issues that they've been seeing with what kids are doing. And I made it through the entire junior high last year giving internet safety type presentations. I'm going to do it again this year. It's one of those things I think we're going to try to keep doing every year and hope it gets through to a few of them at least. But we're going to cover a lot of different topics today about internet safety. We want to discuss social media and the footprint in society that has the issues that kids come across it, between the addiction, how it's affecting them, the social media stuff. It leads to a lot of cyberbullying. I always tell kids when I give these presentations about the crimes that they can commit when they do these things, because I want them to be educated, because unfortunately not knowing that you're breaking the law is never an excuse for breaking the law. So I make sure to tell them that too. We're going to discuss sexting and the impact, and then ways people can get assistance when dealing with the inappropriate material. There's a lot of resources out there. That's why we put this together. We have our local resources. There's some good online stuff that we're going to cover towards the end. So we're hoping that this will kind of make an impact on some of the parents that watch it, and we'll maybe get through to some of the kids. So I know I have Jason Culligan coming up next here.
Good evening, folks, and again, thanks for being here tonight. To piggyback off of what Trooper Kunith said, this is my third year as a school resource officer here at the high school, and Deputy Elise is over at the Thunder Bay Junior High. The past 2 years, we've seen an alarming increase of crimes that these kids are committing when it comes to sexting, when it comes to sending sensitive photographs of themselves to other people, the sharing of the photos from this person to that person on multiple social media outlets. And what they don't understand is that there's a battery of felony crimes that comes along with it. Not only that, they don't know the dangers of what that could lead to, which is exactly why this presentation we put together and we're giving you here today. So that's kind of a background of why we decided that this needed to happen. The other interesting thing that was alarming to me is when these investigations take place, parents get called to the schools, cell phones get confiscated as a part of a criminal investigation, but the parents didn't seem like they cared a whole lot about the severity of what their kids were wrapped up in. They wanted us to be out on the road arresting the drug dealers that Alpena might have, or doing traffic stops and what have you. So they didn't condone what they were doing, but they also didn't put a lot of weight on it. And when you see the slides that we're going to be presenting here today and getting the information out there, I beg to differ that this is a very serious issue that needs to be brought to everyone's attention. So that's a little bit of a background on why this panel came to be. So social media. So back when I was growing up, when I used the telephone, I had the rotary dial, one number, second number back, and then of course when you get to the phone, when it rings, what happens if you get a busy signal? Hang it up and do it again. That's when I was growing up. Now kids have these cell phones. Now they can be on the phone with somebody, they can be texting somebody, they can be checking their Facebook or Instagram, whatever. And so if technology back hypothetically yesterday was rotary phones, and today's technology is everything literally at your fingertip, what does tomorrow's technology look like? And although technology is a wonderful thing and we can build on it, it's also very dangerous. And with these kids and with the parameters that they have to use the social media, it's really causing issues in school, out of school, you name it. And so when I saw this slide here, I couldn't believe it. I might know 3 of them. I don't know what most of these are. But you can be rest assured that your son or your daughter, granddaughter, what have you, they know what most of these, if not all of them, are. And how many different accounts do they have? Do they have just one? Or do they have a half a dozen? And then are they posting photographs, whether it's at school, their selfies, vacations, just to one outlet? Or are they sending them now on multiple outlets? Because however many social media outlets that we have up here, there are perpetrators out there in their homes, in their rooms, on the computers, on every single one of these, trying to get somebody victimized or trying to extort, sextort, trying to do everything they can to pull them in. And that's the danger that's hidden. That's what these kids don't see. So there's a lot of social media outlets that can get people in trouble. So what I see here at school is the cell phones are not allowed in the classrooms. They're supposed to be put away. Their earbuds are supposed to be put away. They're supposed to be attention up front, learning, what have you. When it comes time for pastime in between classes, I can't tell you how many students run into the walls, run into the back of kids, run up on the heels of kids because they're glued right here. They got the earbuds in, they're walking, boom. Oh, over here, boom. It's like pinball machines. They're all glued to their phones, the vast majority, instead of walking from class to class. They cannot make it a day or even in between classes without being on their phones. It's an addiction. And when the next time you go out to dinner, take a look at who's around. Their families might be going out to eat, but they're all on their cell phones. There's no face-to-face communication, so it seems. We've lost that art of talking to people face-to-face, especially families. We're all on cell phones, they're all texting, they're all doing this. There might be a question over here, but they might answer it without even making that eye contact. So the addiction of social media, the addiction of what we're seeing here is very real. And it's damaging our kids in ways that we're seeing in law enforcement that's alarming. And that's, what we're here for.
So I talk about a lot of the pros and the cons of social media that we have. There's a lot of good things about it, especially when it comes to the teenagers. They have the capabilities to express themselves. They can talk to people about maybe their personal problems. Maybe they're having mental health issues. It's something that's embarrassing. They don't want to talk face-to-face with their friends about. They can talk to someone else not in the area who may be experiencing the same thing. Learn how those others cope with those challenging life situations is a huge benefit for them. They can ask for help. They could seek health care. They have a lot of options that they can do online through social media. There's also a lot of negative effects that they have. We talked about the addiction. They end up losing sleep. Maybe they suffer in class. Some of that addiction, when I think it's age 15 is when teens are most susceptible to addiction. It works the same as it does with drugs, where your brain releases dopamine because you're getting all these basically instant gratification from the social media. So it makes you feel good. You put your social media away. A little while later, you need to feel good again. You go back to that source. It's a similar pattern in the brain as it is when they're addicted to different substances. And they're just more susceptible to it at that age. It disrupts their sleep patterns. They're going to stay up all night playing on their phone, on social media. We talked about they have access to information, but you also have a lot of access to incorrect information because everybody has an opinion that they want to put on there. Some people think of it as information rather than just someone's opinion, and they take it the wrong way. And a big thing is it can expose them to online predators. That's where we talk about the sextortion that can happen, also the cyberbullying. That's where all of the cyberbullying is happening, is on these different social media sites. So one of the things when I do these presentations to the kids, I tell them these sites are not private. A lot of the sites, so the only social media I have is Facebook. Does anyone else here have Facebook still? I've had it like over 20 years, I think. And the kids are always shocked when I tell them that I've had a Facebook longer than they've been alive. But there's different things you can do with some of these where, like, Snapchat is a real popular one. You can use the Snapchat app to take the photo. Now, through my career as a law enforcement, I've learned that when you do that, maybe you take a photo, maybe you were going to post something insensitive, inappropriate, and then you change your mind, but you took that photo through the app still retains that photo, and a lot of people don't realize that. There's things that you need to pay attention to when you read those user terms and agreements and you check that box. Does anyone here ever read that? No, because I don't have time. I got too many other things to do in my life. I'm not going to read it either, so just hope that I'm not going to get myself into trouble. So we tell the kids that even if you delete things, there's still records of it. Law enforcement, we have the ability to do search warrants. I've done them on Facebook, Snapchat. We can put in preservation requests, and we can obtain all the information, things that have been sent, who it went to, where it came from. We're able to track a lot of those things. The other thing is, too, you put these posts out, maybe it's something positive, and it goes viral, that's a great thing, but if it's something negative and it goes viral also, it can really affect their future. When it comes to anything you want for a job, some of us as law enforcement officers, they do a pretty good background investigation on us, and one of the first places that they go to is our social media to see what type of things we've put on there. Thankfully, there's really nothing on mine. I don't do much for social media, so they had to find other ways by contacting other people, but it's one of the things that they do. The other thing I've told some of these kids when I do these presentations to them, maybe you have a job, you have a bad day, you go home, you go online and you rant about it, putting the company down, putting your manager down. If they find out about it, there's a good chance they may just let you go because they don't want to associate with you anymore. And they think that that may not be fair, but that's what happens because they don't want to associate with you. The other thing is, even though a lot of these places seem secure, they can be hacked. I mean, we've had reports, who's heard about the federal government getting hacked and they gain access to social security numbers that haven't even been issued to people yet. So there's people that are capable of hacking the federal government. I'm sure they could hack into some social media accounts if they want to. So, and I think I covered too about how all of our digital information gets recovered. We have computer crimes units in the state police. We have one in Traverse City. If I seize a phone, whether it be for CSAM, child sexually abusive material, or maybe it was a drug-related thing from someone who was arrested for selling narcotics, I do a search warrant on it. I send it over to the computer crimes unit. They will extract all the data on it, and we're able to obtain all of that. So one of the other things I want to talk about too is, who here has ever heard of geotagging? Everybody knows what a GPS is, a global positioning system. It works the same way. If your phone, you take a picture with it, it may put a longitude and latitude depending on how you have your phone. When you upload it to your social media, depending on how you have your privacy settings, anybody might be able to see it. So maybe you were trying to be careful. You don't want to take a picture of the address, or you don't want to take a picture of where you live so people can find it. But if you don't have your privacy settings set up right, they can still access it through that. And there's a detective here in this next video. They got to play it a little different because it doesn't want to work. He's going to give a good description and how it works.
Posting photos on the internet has never been easier, but there is a potential danger. That actually be unknowingly putting personal information out there about yourself and your family. They're your snapshots. Use a Shannon Moss. It's simple.
Smartphones allow people to stay connected like never before, especially through pictures. Just click and post a web photo, and you can instantly show friends and family what you're up to. But what many people don't realize is that smartphones have the ability to track your exact location. It's called geotagging. This would be like a stalker's dream.
Absolutely, yeah.
Geotagging is the process of adding geographical identification to photographs and video. Basically, it's the equivalent of adding a 10-digit grid coordinate to everything you post on the internet. To prove the point, we enlisted the help of Portland Police Detective Eli Chase, a forensic analyst in the computer crimes lab. Using his iPhone, Detective Chase took a picture of a park bench. A picture, by just looking at it, could have been taken anywhere in the world.
I can load that file. Immediately, I have a ton of information about that picture. What kind of camera took the picture, make and model.
And the GPS coordinates. Watch what happens when we plug that information into the computer world.
Let's see how close we get. Wow. Wow. It put me in the exact spot. Off by maybe. Actually, no, it's right there.
That's the great way you took the picture from. Right there. Right in the courtyard of the Portland Police Department. Now, what if you posted a picture of your new flat screen TV or a picture of your kids? If inadvertently, you could be giving away your street address.
When I'm able to go out in the courtyard and take a picture of that park bench, and I haven't done that experiment before this interview, I'm actually quite concerned about how accurate that was.
One smartphone user we talked to was equally disturbed.
You could even zoom in, so you could look at where the photo was and go in, and it could almost take you exactly where that photo was taken.
That's a little scary. And you zoom in here, and you zoom out.
Joe Palacci is the owner of Leaders of Exchange Street, an electronics store in Fulton. He says geotags are not only embedded in photos taken with smartphones, but many digital cameras as well.
I'm so glad you people don't even realize that they're getting it. They do actually use it for a while, and they say, oh, wow, I really have it.
Palacci says geotagging has its advantages. It's great when you want to organize your vacation photos, but he says it's important to know that the feature can be disabled.
You give to a kid, and she posts a picture with the GPS online, and now somebody says, oh, I know exactly where to go.
So far in Maine, there have been no reported cases of geotag-related crimes. The law enforcement officers like Detective Chase know all too well the potential is there.
And if I told you the type of statistics that I'm dealing with, even just in this lab in the city of Portland, you'd be very uncomfortable with that.
Detective Chase says being proactive and knowing the potential dangers are the key to keeping yourself and your family safe while still staying connected with the world.
The good news is disabling the geotag feature on your smartphone is relatively easy. It does vary from smartphone to smartphone, but here's the basics. Like with the iPhone 4, you just touch settings, then general, then location services, and right there's the camera. You can shut it off. Now, as for digital cameras, the best thing you can do is just read the manual. In Portland, Shannon Moss, News 8.
So if you heard her, she said iPhone 4. I don't even know what number my iPhone is. I have a work iPhone plus my personal one. That video is over 10 years old. So these capabilities have been there for quite a while. I guarantee you if any one of you open your phone right now and you go to the map setting, it's more than likely going to put that dot where your location is right here. When you go home, it probably knows what room you're sitting in. So I always tell people, think about those things when you're posting your pictures. Make sure you have your privacy settings set up. And another good thing that goes along with that is don't post before you're going on vacation or during. Because we as law enforcement officers, we get called to people's houses that have been broken into before when they return from vacation. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody was watching their profile. I had a person I used to work with, he used to post on his Facebook, would say, I'm leaving for North Carolina for a week on Friday. And I'd send him a message like, well, I'm going to clean your house out when you're gone. Thanks for letting me know. Just to mess with him. So the next video is similar when it comes to finding a location, but this is just a simple thing taken from a selfie video. This guy has a site online. He finds people that want to be found, and the lady in the video, she wants to show her 10-year-old what people can find out just from a short video from what's around you. And I think this guy's pretty good. He'd probably make a good detective for what he does.
Okay, I hope the 10-year-old is watching. So what can I say? This video was recorded in selfie photos
So I think he's done hundreds of videos, and I think his fastest time at locating someone was, I think, about 3 minutes. So you think even if you're on vacation, not someplace you would normally be, that's not anything that high tech what he did. A lot of it is just taking in a few observations. Like he said it in there, you know, the sun, the accent, there's all these things that he took in just to put together a basic map where a few buildings are. And he narrowed it down, he had 20 some locations. Us in law enforcement, like if we're looking for something, like say a vehicle, and I get it narrowed down to 20, I got it. Like it's not that hard to look for 20 things, but when it's thousands, it's impossible. So he narrowed it down to 20 some, and it was a pretty easy find for him. So the next one that I'll talk about a little bit, I have a statistic from the FBI that in 2020, they received 365,000, we get there, reports of missing children in 2020. Now, most of those were 21 or younger, and obviously not all of them are kidnapping. A lot of them are runaways, but a lot of it does happen because of people they're meeting online. This one, I hope, scares a few parents. 70% of kids in the U.S. would accept a friend request regardless of the sender. When I give presentations, even at the junior high, and I ask the kids, and I ask them to be honest, I said, who here has at least one friend on your social media site you've never met in person? And most of their hands go up. And there's probably a handful of them that aren't putting their hands up. So I'm not saying that everybody online that you don't know is a bad person, but a lot of cases that turn into human trafficking or lead to kids being kidnapped, they started with them talking to someone they didn't know online. I think it's about, 82% of child sex crimes in the U.S. have started because of social media. So abductors use it because of the low risk of detection. They have access to people 24/7. It's never turned off. There's someone always online. So 90% of kids have some sort of social media presence by the time they're 2, because not that they have their own profile, but parents want to show off their kids, right? How many people you see when they have a newborn, you know, they're going home with them, the pictures, and that's fine. A lot of people just need to remember your privacy settings. Make sure you're not putting it out there for the entire public to see. It's less likely for someone you don't want to see it to end up seeing what you have going on there. The other thing is, too, about half of the parents share embarrassing things about their kids. And I kind of like talking to the kids at the junior high, and I ask them, and I see some hands go up when they're like, yeah, mom shared this about me, and I didn't want her to put it on there. So there's a few more statistics that I got. The name of the website was Child Watch of North America. So their statistics say that 1 in 7 juveniles aged 10 to 17 have received some sort of sexual solicitation online. 4% of them received an aggressive solicitation, which someone that asked to meet in person or tried to call them. 34% had unwanted exposure to sexual material, and only about a quarter of them that had that exposure actually told parents about it. So there's a lot of them that aren't going to speak up because maybe it's embarrassing. The other thing that happens with a lot of the kids getting exposed to sexual material is it desensitizes them. So if something does happen, they kind of feel like, well, it's a normal thing. This is what I've been exposed to all the time. It's just kind of rewires the brain a little bit. So you had some stuff you wanted to say on this one?
Yes, thank you. So one point that was also on the side was that criminals use social media platforms where they use those social media platforms to look for potential victims, which they later attempt to groom and then meet offline. And I just wanted to bring a little bit of attention to the word groom and how we use that in law enforcement. It's really a word that we use to describe how a child sexual predator can get close to their next target or really their next victim. And it's not like somebody offering candy to a child or asking to look for their puppy or anything like that. Grooming, when it's in person, is really a very practiced behavior, which is specifically designed to go undetected by adults and the child as well. It's kind of a cycle where if we were talking about two consenting adults, it's much like what we think of getting to know somebody, just dating somebody, whether it's in person or online. So just meeting the individual, talking to the child online, opening up to one another, asking the child questions, finding out about the child's likes and dislikes. And with adolescents, there are different stresses. They're, talking about their parents and just being a kind, lending ear, somebody who's non-judgmental, all the while just trying to get closer and closer to the child. They're gaining trust and friendships with the child, with the predator's ultimate goal always in mind, and that being sexual contact eventually. And unfortunately, online, groomers don't have to be as sneaky as they are in person. We've already essentially invited them into our home via the internet, our kids' cell phones, and their social media accounts, or even their shared gaming sites when they're gaming online. So the predator's behaviors, their words, their comments, their grooming are all a lot of times silently typed to the child. And again, they have access sometimes 24/7, where you as parents will never see it happening and never hear it happening unless we actually go looking for it.
Something too that kind of touch on that when it comes to the online grooming. One of the things that we see when kids get bullied online, they end up with some low self-esteem, different things like that. It makes it easier for someone to groom them because they want to be accepted. They want those positive comments. You're pretty, buying them things, because if nobody's paying attention to them, if parents are busy all the time, they want that interaction. They want that feeling to be wanted. And that's another issue that you can run into with kids that are already having self-esteem issues.
Okay, my portion of the slides would have to do with bullying and cyberbullying. And being an SRO at Thunder Bay Junior High has really woke me up. I was kind of, thank you. I was kind of naive to everything that is taking place there. And I see a lot of kids that are being bullied, either by being pushed, kicked. There's been people saying words that they shouldn't say to these kids. They're demeaning them. And it's also happening online. Let me see here. Now, people think that face-to-face bullying is more damaging, but that is not true. Cyberbullying, I would say, would have to be, because it's on the social platforms, which there they feel that they can say anything they want. They're hidden. It's harder to get them located of who they are via doing search warrants and preservations requests. But usually the ones with the cyberbullying are very, very hurtful and does a lot of damage to the students. They post mean, negative comments on another classmate's social media account. I had a case where there had been some pornographic photos taken. A girl was dating a boy. They break up. The boy then spreads these throughout the school, and then she's criticized and demeaned, and she ended up leaving the school because it was so bad. There's other incidents where I had a case where somebody didn't have the correct shoes or the name brand jeans, and they belittled this person and made this person feel not wanting to go to school, making excuses, skipping school. Their academic achievements have gone down. Their grades were going down. They don't want to eat. They don't want to do any other usual activities that they usually did. And it really plays a major role on their well-being. I don't even know where I'm at here. I'm just going on and on and on. But are you moving the things? Okay, because I'm not reading it, each one, so. Where did it go? Where is it? You got it? Where is it? Oh, it's back over there. Okay, thanks. Go ahead and flick. Okay, yeah, this is the one I wanted to get to. The cyberbullying. Oops. With the social media platforms, a lot of the social bullying that I have seen has been on TikTok. There's been a lot on TikTok. There's a lot on Snapchat. The kids come to me and show me these. The major one I think that I've had at the Thunder Bay has been TikTok and Snapchat. There are some texting messages back and forth, photos of them playing a sport and then them making comments that they look like a whale, or this one, you know, could be a tsunami, like an earthquake because she's so big. And, you know, it just really belittles these people and they feel terrible about it. The cyberbullying statistics related to social media indicate that kids have a 79% chance of being cyberbullied while using YouTube. YouTube's another one, especially the gaming that they do. There's a lot of kids that get bullied while they're on their gaming media platforms. They are likely to be cyberbullied with the Snapchat at 69%, TikTok at 64%, and Facebook at 49%. I would say those are, I guess it depends what website you go on, but like I have seen, it's been TikTok and Snapchat at Thunder Bay. Yeah, that was a 2022. It was 22. Okay. Now how do I do this? No. Okay. The main reasons people get cyberbullied, they say, is the appearance. That's your highest reason of being bullied. They don't like the person's appearance, such as their size, height, or disfigurement. There's also the religion, race, which would be, I think, an ethical type of ethics charge on that. The people that usually do this, they want to dominate others and improve their social status. They want to, well, they were being a victim themselves, being a bully, bullied themselves. They might be feeling angry, frustrated, or jealous of that person. They have low self-esteem and wanting to feel better about themselves, so they have to belittle someone else. How these kids feel from this, I gotta do two things here, right? This way? Oh, yeah. Okay. How the kids generally feel from being cyberbullied is, like I've said before, they become shy and withdrawn. They get moody, agitated, anxious. They become isolated or withdrawn. They lose their interest in usual activities. They don't want to go to school. They skip school. They get into trouble. And they can also do self-harm or threaten suicide, which I've seen in my career. I've been doing this for 31 years, and we have gone on a lot of calls, possible suicidal, and you talk to the individual, and they'll say they're just being bullied at school, and they just can't handle it anymore, and nobody's helping them. They need help, and they just, want to get away from it. Okay, this is an incident that occurred with a gentleman, a student, 14-year-old Matt Epling. He was actually from East Lansing in Michigan, and he lost his life due to bullying. Got to click. There we go. And how this incident happened is that he was being hazed by other students. He graduated from the 8th grade, and they had a welcome to high school hazing for him to do. And hazing is when you try to recruit somebody or you try to get them to participate in something so you can move on to humiliate, to degrade them, abuse them. They can end up getting hurt. And it's just an acceptance to get into that group.
That wasn't anything recent. I think that was 2002.
2002.
Yeah, so that was back just after I graduated high school, so it's not like it's anything new.
Yeah. See, I don't have notes on. When this incident occurred, his parents fought and to get some type of law in place for cyberbullying, bullying, the hazing, and they came up with the safe school law. It is called the Matt Epling Safe School Law. That was back in 2011. And now what Michigan does is require that all schools adopt a policy prohibiting bullying. So if someone is being cyberbullied or bullied, we gotta let the school know, and they have their policy of what they follow on that. If we are to charge somebody, we cannot charge them with cyberbullying. It would be considered a stalking. There is no cyberbullying Michigan law. It's a school policy. I'm trying to get through these as fast as I can. This will be another story of a teenage girl.
Felony charges this morning. They're accused of bullying her classmate to the point that she killed herself. Their parents could also face charges. Anna Warner is in Winter Haven, Florida. Anna, good morning.
Good morning, Nora, and good morning, Charlie. Investigators say bullying drove Sedgwick to take her own life. They believe as many as 15 girls were involved in a relentless campaign of harassment.
what they're talking about online. You need to know who their friends are. You need to know if they're bullying people at school.
And last night we spoke with the parents of the 12-year-old girl arrested in this case. She expressed remorse to the court, and her father says he feels horrible about what happened, that his daughter will be dealing with the consequences. Those parents say they are cooperating with the police. Now, the father believes that his daughter was led down the wrong path by the older girl, the 14-year-old. He says that his daughter is a straight-A student, and she's never been in trouble before.
I just want to make a comment that this occurred in 2013, and the two students that were initially charged with the aggravated assault, the charges were dropped, and they were given counseling and the services that were needed for them. So they did not get charged with it. Take over?
What's next? Where's the clicker? Okay.
I hit it again.
So one of the things that a lot of, like she had touched on with the cyberbullying, like bullying and cyberbullying itself is not a crime, but I think everybody knows if you physically hit, kick, punch, push anyone, that's a crime. That's called assault. If a lot of times people think stalking is, creepy person following you around. That's not exactly what stalking is. And I'll read you the boring description of it, but it is a course of conduct that is composed of a series of 2 or more separate, non-continuous acts of unwanted, unconsented contact with the victim. And these acts cause the victim to feel frightened, emotional distress, threatened, harassed or terrorized, intimidated. This also includes electronic means. Now, it causes them to feel it, and it would also cause a reasonable person to feel it, because I know some people are more sensitive than others, but you would have to think what a reasonable person could become upset by. I have arrested many people for stalking, and I know Cynthia maybe can't give her personal opinion on, or her professional opinion on the video we just watched, but in what you saw in a case like that, is that something kids could definitely get some charges for?
I think it's something that kids could definitely get charges for, and I can tell you have gotten charges for here in Alpena County. Thankfully, we haven't had as serious of a case as that, but definitely to a lesser degree, we have charged people.
Now, when it comes to the penalties, stalking is typically a 1-year misdemeanor. Now, it gets higher. It becomes a 5-year felony if the victim is less than 18 and the suspect is 5 or more years older. It also turns into aggravated stalking if there's already been like a personal protection order put in place by the court, or say, for example, like a domestic violence incident happened, a suspect was arrested, a condition of their bond would be no contact with the victim. If they do that again, then that could get up to an aggravated stalking charge. So, or if they have previous convictions. The other thing we mentioned before, like when we talk about the electronic means, posting a message without consent is another crime that we have. And with this one, it's a little specific where the suspect, needs to know or has reason to know that the posting could cause 2 or more separate acts of unconsented contact with the victim, and they intended, to cause that conduct, and it would make the person feel frightened, terrorized, harassed, and it would also cause a reasonable person to feel the same, and that is actually a 2-year felony. So when I give these presentations to the kids, I'm not trying to scare them, like I said earlier, but I want them to understand the trouble that they can get into by the online bullying, the different things that they're sending, the pictures that they're posting. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on with that? Okay. And when we talk about sexting, it's defined as sending, receiving, or forwarding sexually explicit messages, photographs, or images primarily between cell phones, oneself to another. That's, I think, about how 99.9% of it is done. I don't think people do it any other way. But one of the things that they run into, and I know Officer Culligan mentioned earlier, and I think even Deputy Wisniewski did, with boyfriend, girlfriend are sending these photos, they break up, boyfriend gets mad, sends photos to all his friends, they make their way around school. You can call it revenge porn if you want. It's a type of bullying, and it happens there's been cases where, just like the other video we watched, kids end up taking their own life because of it. They have to change schools. It's just not something that they can mentally handle, to be excluded from everything and have everybody. I can't imagine my photo going around, everybody getting a picture of me without my clothes on. That would be pretty devastating, I think. And I'm sure most people would feel that way too. So some of the statistics, another boring chart here. If it changes. This is from 2020. It's middle and high school age kids. So I don't know if you can read the top of it. It's just at 35%. But the green is a percentage of them that received some sort of a sext message, and the blue is the percentage of ones that have sent it. So you can see as they get older, they get to about that 14, 15, 16, 17-year age, it's happening more. But it's happening at 12 years old. It's happening at younger than 12 years old. I know that there's been officers that have taken complaints with kids that are 9, 10 years old that are starting to do this already. So a lot of times too, this is where your online predators come in. This is what they want. So they groom the kids, they lie to them, they do whatever they need to do to get to the photographs, and then once they get one, they just blackmail them to get more. So they tell them, if you don't continue to send them to me, I'll send them to your friends, I'll tell your parents, or anything else they can do to keep them doing it. Yep.
All right, so one thing that I definitely want to drive home with those comments that Trooper Kunith just said, and a lot of times we talk in hypotheticals or like this is happening places, but I just want to reiterate for those of you who don't already know, this is happening here. It's not just somewhere, someplace, sometime, but right here at Alpena High School, our own Thunder Bay Junior High. And I just want you to take a look at this particular slide itself. I find it to be the most interesting because you'll note that the number of those who receive the photographs in every age group outnumbers the people who are sending the photographs. So while a child may be taking sexually explicit photos of themselves, they should just naturally assume that it will get out to someone or some people other than their intended viewer. Here, they start the chart at age 12, and that's 7th grade. And that may not be news to some of you, but my first sexting case that I handled as a prosecutor started off here in Alpena High School, where the IT department found a naked photograph of a student on someone's Chromebook. And as you'll see later, taking this picture, receiving this picture, or having this picture on a cell phone or on a laptop, each of those are separate crimes that somebody can be charged with. But in working that particular case, I found myself speaking with the family and the person whose email that it was found on. He was in possession of the photo and therefore guilty of a 4-year felony. I was speaking with the family and the person of the child who sent it to that student. This person had distributed the photograph and so was guilty of a separate 15-year felony. And finally, the family I was speaking to and the young student who took the photograph of themselves. They had then been guilty of actually producing child sexually abusive material, a 20-year felony. And so at that time, I knew that this was an issue across the country and here in our town, and no one had figured out how to stop this from happening. We had spoken about it at prosecutor conferences statewide. So I sat down with the originator of that particular photograph and asked, why would you do this? And they had all the normal answers that you'll actually see in the next slide. But it's this next answer that left me completely speechless. I said, okay, so can you please help us? How do we teach kids like you about how horrible this is and how it has absolutely wrecked your world because neither me nor the student or her parents or anyone I talked to involved in this case wanted this type of shame and embarrassment to happen to another child. And this was the child's answer. Ms. Mishinsky, I don't know how to teach kids not to do this, but whatever you do, you better start in elementary school. And I said, what? They said, if you wait until junior high, you are too late. And my heart was broken. It was just broken for those 10-year-old fifth graders who would have to grow up way too fast, who would learn about topics that they've got no business worrying about and just avoid becoming, they shouldn't have to worry about these topics just so they don't become the next victim of this type of stuff. And I plan to, and I'm sure the officers will talk more about the lifelong effects that this can have on a person, but how else do we make this stop? Now, I personally don't feel that we have any business breaking down the doors of the elementary schools to give this particular presentation, right? Ruining the innocence of 9 and 10-year-olds with scary stories and tactless PowerPoints. No offense. But, yeah, we still have to make these selfies stop somehow. And hearing these cases coming into the office and knowing the school officers are dealing with this constantly, it's all I thought about for a really long time. And to me, it always would boil down to the very beginning. If you want to solve this problem, you have to stop it where it starts. Now, we can spin our wheels trying to control the dissemination or the sharing of these photographs, not only just in these schools, but eventually they get out around the world. But there's far less substance to disseminate, far less ability to manipulate, and far less shame and bullying if the photo is never taken in the first place. And then there's no weapon to use against that child later on to destroy the life of that child. And so from all the head scratching that the prosecutors had across the country and the horror stories that law enforcement has to hear about, and administration as well, and the head shaking of those involved, I think the answer can surface, and the answer starts with you. It starts with the parents. The plague that this has on our children here in this county and across the country, you are the best line of defense against this plague. You and your relationship with your child, the communication between yourself and your kids, to tell them that taking a photo is not only illegal, but it's simply wrong and it will have lifelong effects on you. As parents and guardians, you know the best age-appropriate way to approach your own child. You know how to be kind in these conversations, and you know how to be tactful. And it's you that can help save our children from this particular evil that's knocking on our door. As we, like I said before, have invited this presence into our homes through our gaming systems, cell phones, and internet, we just have to express to our children and watch out for them as they go along to see about any behavioral changes. So again, like the officer said, that's really big, the only reason why we are here tonight is to open your eyes and educate you on the dangers and the lifelong emotional and sometimes legal ramifications, to help you understand that you have the responsibility to have that relationship with your children, to let it hit home every chance that you get, to not give in to the particular peer pressures of taking that photograph of yourself. Because if that photograph is never taken, it can never be used against you, and it can't be disseminated amongst your classmates, and the photo that's never taken can never find its way into the hands of those online predators who are sitting there just waiting for an opportunity like this to come their way. Oh, okay.
So some of the reasons that we found that why do teens do this, big thing is peer pressure. You know, they're getting pressured from their significant other, whatever boyfriend, girlfriend they have, and it's that nonstop asking for it, and, well, we know what happens. They do it, maybe they break up, it doesn't stay as a private thing. So another thing to say is to express love. I think that's another reason where one person in a relationship will just say, well, if you really love me, you would do it. And I know a lot that Cynthia just touched on, they're oblivious to the consequences. They don't understand what can happen, what probably will happen. And I feel really bad for the kids that it's happened to, and the parents as well that get dragged into it because, well, they're your kids until they're 18. You're in charge of them. So, and I know when we talk too about what we do with those digital devices, well, we seize them. You never get them back because they have child pornography on them. They're using the commission of a crime. They will go to our computer crimes unit. They extract the data. When the investigation, the case is completely done, then they go through a shredder, and that's the end of them. The other excuse that they've come up with is it's safer than sex, which I guess it kind of is in this sense of what can happen with sex, but that's what the sexting usually leads to. So I'm not sure why that they use that as one of their excuses for doing it, but I think peer pressure is probably the number one thing. And like I said earlier, when you get kids who are getting unwanted sexual images, they're becoming desensitized to it. So they think it's normal, so they just go ahead and do it. They don't think about any of the consequences because, well, my friend did it, this person, I know I've gotten these photos from all these other students, so they just join in with it.
Can I add a little bit to that, Jason? Thank you. Sorry, Jason. Okay. So once the photos get out, as we stated, there's no going back, right? And so once they are disseminated amongst their classmates, the children are, as we stated before, bullied, but they've never felt more alone than when they are the subject of this particular. Their trust in their friends is gone, and the trust in parents can be put into jeopardy because now they know they're in trouble. Now they know they have to fess up to something if they're in fact going to seek any help. And here's where we also wrap up to the beginning where we talked about grooming. Sexting is also used as part of the grooming process by child sex predators, and not necessarily in the most obvious way. So sure, adult sex predators, we'll see later on, most often will seek the internet for certain types of photos of underage adolescents, or just plain kids, right? But there's a secondary advantage that predators have when it comes to individuals whose lives have been affected by having their own photographs get out. And that is once someone's photos are leaked, their reputation is tainted and their self-esteem plummets. And their self-worth can bottom right out. And what predators know all too well is that this makes them more vulnerable to the predator's manipulation and future victimization. So once the victims become this shell of a child that they once were, they will start to turn, without intervention, right? They will start to turn to additional behaviors consistent with low self-worth, like depression, even more sexualized behaviors, and substance abuse and addiction. And this is a part that lasts long into adulthood. They do not get the proper help. And that's where I then later see them as adults, oftentimes suffering from different types of alcohol or drug addiction. And as my time at the prosecutor's office has been spent speaking with a lot of individuals who suffer from those types of addictions, a lot of times this stems from childhood trauma and sexual abuse. So these are all a very slippery slope to a very life-altering sentence, really, if this should happen with these children.
So let me just wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen, because this brings us around full circle. From what I'm seeing at the high school and what we're seeing at the junior high, and the answer that that gentleman gave to the prosecutor, it's true. If you don't start this in the grade schools, it's already too late. And so what we're seeing at the high school, at the junior high, in some of these joint investigations is the taking of the photograph of oneself, whether it's under peer pressure or you do it because you want to or somebody asks for it, and then you're disseminating it to a person or persons, and you're using your cell phones to disseminate this information. And so we'll touch in on it a little bit, but those are all felonies. And these kids have no idea what they're doing. And so when you start with social media, and you start with Facebook or TikTok or any of the number of the social media platforms that I had up earlier, it really draws these kids in because they have no idea what they're playing with. And it's the effects are so damaging. At the junior high, I was amazed that Deputy Lisa was investigating this at the junior high level. And now to know that this gentleman told her that we got to start at the elementary. Can you imagine giving this speech or giving this slideshow to elementary kids? I can't. But if that's where you have to start, wow. And so that's where you as the parent is the first line of defense into getting these phones, to put your parental guidelines on it so that this doesn't happen. So this brings us around full circle to what we're seeing here at the high school and at the junior high. So, sextortion, criminals attempt to blackmail someone after compromising information has been obtained. This could be personal information, photos, videos of themselves doing something, you name it, that's what they're after. Sometimes a scammer will say that they have secretly recorded the victim via the webcam or another device, and if the victim doesn't follow through with their demands, a lot of times monetary, then they are going to give out that video, that compromising photo to their parents, to their contacts, to their friends, and that's where it becomes very, very dangerous because what do you do now? You know, typically they're kids and they do something that they don't know about, and now they're having to pay money, and it's very, very dangerous, and it is here. Ladies and gentlemen, we deal with it, we investigate it, it is here in Alpena. I've heard too many times in my career, oh, this is Alpena, this kind of stuff doesn't happen. The prosecutor prosecutes these cases. The troopers, the deputies, the officers at APD, we investigate them. It's here. And that's what's so dangerous about social media, and that's what's so dangerous about how much time these kids are spending on their devices. So, I'm from Escanaba. Now, this just happened 3 years ago, 2022. Has anyone ever heard of this case in the couple, the chief and Romeo? So, this hits home, ladies and gentlemen, because this is about an hour and 10 minutes from where I live, up in the UP. Now, if there's any place where something shouldn't be, it's way up in the UP. So, this kid, his name is Jordan John DeMay. And at the time this photo was taken, he was 17 years old. Marquette University student, very athletic, very popular at the high school level, had a lot going for him. One day, he was contacted over social media by whom he believed was a fairly attractive woman. Danny Roberts. They even have a name for her, Danny Roberts. This is how real it gets. through the course of the next couple hours, they started talking. They started to kind of get to know each other, so he thought. And then came the time of send me a photograph. And it's not just a photograph of, him smiling or, something nice. It was an explicit photograph that was requested. He did it. He took a photograph of himself, sent it away to whom, again, he thought was a fairly attractive girl. Now the photograph is out there, and now the real perpetrators are on, and they demand ransom in the form of $1,000. You pay us $1,000 right now, or we're going to leak this photograph to not only your parents, but to the contacts that you have because we were able to hack in and get some. Holy cow, what do you do? 17 years old. Got mixed up. So he paid $300, and that wasn't enough. They demanded $1,000. So unfortunately, he says online, I don't know what to do. I'm going to kill myself. And so the ransomers or the perpetrators said, go ahead, good, make it quick, else we're going to do it for you. He committed suicide. Lee?
Samuel and Samson Agoshi were back in court today for their official arraignment, pretrial conference, and bond hearing. They were represented by their attorneys, court appointed on Monday. It was a relatively short hearing, an emotional day again, but just the court process continuing. Here are the 5 big takeaways from the courtroom. Samuel and Samson both pleaded not guilty on all charges. The prosecution released their evidence list, which includes online chat records and images between the defendants and the victims, cell phone records, financial records, and the medical examiner's report of Jordan DeMay. It was also noted that the defendants do not have any criminal history. The prosecution is requesting a jury trial that is expected to last 8 to 10 days. Today's bond hearing was adjourned at the request of the defense. They asked for more time to contact the defendant's family. That hearing will now take place on Wednesday. Now remember, this alleged extortion ring was only discovered after investigators began looking into the suicide of 17-year-old Jordan DeMay. We spoke with Jordan's parents after today's hearing and after an emotional and difficult week.
It's overwhelming, the number of emotions that you go through. And nobody prepares people to sit in the same room as the person going through a trial at such their life.
Everything's going quite faster than they've been anticipating. Everything has been in step. Everything we've talked about is happening. It's happening fast. It's happening on time. So we're pretty confident that this thing is going to wrap up relatively soon.
This case has received international attention. It's the first of its kind, tracking down the defendants, extraditing them back to the United States, and then having enough evidence to have this hearing. Well, everyone that I've spoke to all week long says it is extraordinary, and it's important to remember that in the process, just how incredible it all is. For the family, for justice, for Jordan. Reporting in Grand Rapids, Elizabeth Peterson.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today.
So a joint investigation by the Marquette County Sheriff's Office and the FBI led them to Nigeria. And I know Trooper Kunith, this was kind of the first of its kind where they were able to track down who the alleged suspects were from Nigeria, gathering up evidence to extradite them to the United States, to Marquette, where they stood trial, and they were found guilty on all charges. And both brothers, they were 2 brothers, 21 years old, 24 years old, were sentenced to 17 and a half years in prison here in the U.S., followed by some mandatory probation. Typically, information like this, intimate details of this case, do not get released by law enforcement. It was by the request of the parents that gave authorization for the police department in Marquette County to release the details that were released so that we can bring education to folks like you, to parents like you, to law enforcement like us, so that this can be prevented. Because it can, but again, when you talk about the dangers of social media and the dangers of these mass acceptance of friend requests on Instagram, on whatever social media platform, they're in there. They're in those lists that these kids are just accepting. They have, these perpetrators, these suspects have rooms of banks of computers, and girls at their control learn this down in Lansing at team training. And all they do is send friend requests on every platform they can find. Friend request, friend request, friend request. That's all they do. And then once they get a hold of somebody, once they get their in, then they turn it over to the real suspects, and then they ask for photos, and more times than not, unfortunately, they get them. Very real when you talk about Marquette in the UP, that this will happen. And so it's just, it's food for thought. It's something to keep in mind. Protect your kids, get in their phones, and have talks about this kind of stuff right here. Because at an alarming rate, it's happening. And that's precisely why we have the resources here today to talk about it. So in Michigan, so what's the minimum age in Michigan for, you can read, to vote, to acquire driver's license number, and at the very bottom, to appear in pornographic material? You got to be 18 years of age. We're seeing it at the junior high level, at the high school level. That's taking pictures of yourself, of sensitive material, of sensitive body parts to send to other people, whether it's a boyfriend, whether it's a girl, whether it's whomever. You got to be 18 to do it. And we're seeing it at the junior high level. That's a crime. And then we get into this. This is what freaks out the parents, and this is what these kids that I have investigated, that I have questioned, this is what they don't know. Child sexually abusive material or activity involves a person less than 18 years of age. That pretty much encompasses most of the high school and the junior high. Images are created using depiction or actual part of a person under 18. I don't have to say it. We all know what kind of pictures kids want of. And they put it out there. They don't know. Images contain nudity that are erotic and lustful in nature. It is where the average person would see it as sexually abusive, lacking in an artistic, political, or scientific value. So again, I think in the next slide, this is what happens. When a student takes a photograph, a sensitive photograph of them or their body part, and they send it to somebody using their iPhone or their electronic device, they produce the photograph, so there's the felony. They distribute it to someone else who is under 18. That's distribution. They're in possession of their own photograph or someone else's photograph. That's another 4-year felony. And then using a computer or an electronic device to commit this is another 10-year felony. And I literally had parents come in and say, we don't condone what our son or daughter's doing. This is too much. You need to be out there arresting the drunk drivers and arresting the drug dealers. Does this seem like it's not a big deal? It is. And that's when I knew wholeheartedly that we had a problem. It's when I knew we needed to pool our resources and get this information out there. Because we have gone from social media all the way up to cyber sextortion, and we're not quite done yet. So it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. If the child is left unattended with using a powerful device like an iPhone unattended. Possible outcomes of posting inappropriate material online. We just went over that. We just saw an intense video of the worst case scenario, suicide. For those who don't commit suicide, the lasting effects could be devastating. They could compound every year, every time that video surfaces, every time a video of themselves that they post online, every time somebody sees it and it gets reposted. I've had that happen at the high school too. It comes back around. It was so long they thought that the video was gone, and it came back. And then, the student is reliving the whole scenario over again. So that it's cumulative effects on the person. There's shame, lack of self-confidence. They know what they did was wrong, and now they'll never get it. They'll never outgrow that. It'll always come back to haunt that person. Poor academic performance, absolutely. And could it lead to alcoholism? Could it lead to unemployment, dropping out of school? All the effects are real. It's devastating.
So I just wanted to point out one thing, that we are asking all parents to be hyper-vigilant and to watch what their children are doing and to have all the apps to be able to pay attention to what is going on with their children. But I think that even the most vigilant parents, and I would count all of you here in this room as part of that group, because you are here and you are taking this seriously already. So I'm going to tell you what I think the next step is, which is to, as I stated before, talk to your children and tell them why they should not make this choice to do this. Because by the time you find something on their cell phone, it's already too late. It's already there. It's probably already out there. And what Officer Culligan was talking about is things that I stated before with the lack of confidence. And when they have that, they will go looking for confidence and renewal of their well-being or self-being from all the wrong places, making them the more susceptible to all of these things. And yes, turning to other self-medicating type substances. And throughout my time at the prosecutor's office, we've developed the drug court, and in listening to those both involved in that as well as others who are going through the court system, as I stated, a lot of addicts started out using all their substances to numb the pain, to forget their experiences, and to forget their childhood traumas. So we have to avoid those traumas from ever taking place, and again, just avoid and teach our kids not to take that photo to begin with.
This is a very quick video that I think will be beneficial, and then we'll start wrapping this up.
This is one that I play for junior high kids when I give a similar presentation to them, because I think it's pretty accurate in what happens.
Should we have a classroom? It might. Yeah. And that's the other thing that keeps haunting these kids is once you put a picture out on the social web, out on the internet, out on social media, there's a very slim chance that you'll ever get that back. It's out there for good. Well, just recently, it's called Take It Down, and there are flyers out on your way out should you want to take one or a few of them. It's through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There's a website on there on the very top of the pamphlet, and if you reach out to that website, should you know somebody who might have posted a photograph or a video themselves that they wish they wouldn't have, if you contact and reach out, they will do their best, and there's a good chance that that photo can be located or that video can be located and destroyed or taken down. So there's a little bit of hope here. So there's flyers back there on the tables for when you exit. So no longer can we 100% say that once it's out, it's gone forever. There's a chance it can come back. So that's some good information. So to wrap kind of things up, here's some tips for you. The biggest thing that I can get out there to you, to folks, is if there's an issue, if there's a problem, please come to us. Please come to your school administration. Please get ahead of the game, and we will work with you, to remedy the situation, whatever it is that you're working through. Stop the reposting, stop the sharing of the photographs, because if not, then you're part of the problem. And if you're part of the problem, criminal charges could be sought, hypothetically, against that person. So always come to somebody for help, for assistance, and we'll work with you. Trooper Kunith, we want to wrap this up? Next one? Okay. Okay. So this next video is both interesting and very disturbing at the same time. So this mom goes undercover. The makeup crew is able to make her look like she's a young teenager. And I think she's what, like 30, in her early 30s. So an early 30-year-old woman, they get her makeup and they get her to look like she's a young teen. And this is what happens.
So I think that one's a pretty powerful one to watch. And a lot of these, another one that Officer Culligan talked about, the sextortion with the student from Marquette in that video, all of these started. And remember in the beginning when I had talked and I said that I think it was 70% of kids accept a friend request from someone they don't know. This is how all of this starts, when they're talking to someone they don't know. Now, I'll be honest, I do have friends on social media I've never met in real life, but there are also other state troopers that are in the department that, you know, my coworkers know. So, and like I said earlier, not every person that you don't know online is something awful like we've seen today, but that's how it starts. So, Cynthia, did you have anything you wanted to say about the video before we move on?
Yes, and I won't make it quite as long as I thought I was going to be because it's getting a little bit later. But the part that stuck out for me was when the narrator said, "If I were a child, I would have kept the abuse to myself for fear of being ashamed and blamed, and I would have suffered with it silently." And I think those of us who have worked with children and have heard their stories know that's exactly what they do, is they suffer in silence. And the next thing she said was, our work or the work of law enforcement or legislation will never be able to protect children as well as the parents and guardians can. So I want you all to remember that you are the first line of defense when it comes to protecting our children from these predators. And I did bring one handout, and you can find it on your way out. And I will just briefly summarize the story. The handout is of 2 different books and a little snippet from each book, but they outline an individual. Her name is Teresa Flores, and she is a survivor of sex trafficking, which started when she was 15 years old in Michigan, in Birmingham. And her first book explains the trials and tribulations that she went through during a 2-year period in which she was trafficked. And the second book is kind of the third in her series, and I personally have not read the third book, but it brings me a little bit of hope, and I'm excited to read it. And it does talk about here we go. The statistics and the stories and graphics that cover, it presents students, specifically ages 13 to 18, with a clear picture of how trafficking happens, how prevalent it is in our world today, and also how they can get involved to bring an end to it. And the one chapter stuck out for me particularly, which I'll be excited to read, which is entitled Victim Proof Your Life.
All right, so when I talk to the kids about this stuff and I tell them if they encounter inappropriate material, if they get a explicit photo sent to them that they did not request, the best thing that they can do is come forward to one of the school resource officers, to any law enforcement, to a teacher, to their parents, because as we talked about earlier, they can get charged just for possessing it. And if they know that they have it, well, they're possessing it. The best thing they can do is come forward if they want to avoid any kind of trouble for it. We have okay to say in a lot of the schools. We have a person down at our headquarters in Lansing who is monitoring 24 hours a day, constantly going through text messages, emails, answering the phone, listening to voicemails, and then they will send out the appropriate response to anything that is reported. Other ways to get help. There's suicide hotline. I tell the kids, speak with a parent, guardian, school counselors, anyone. There's all the resources are there to help. You just have to reach out. So I tell them, if you need to talk to me afterwards, that's fine. It's actually happened. A kid has come up and talked to me afterwards, and we work through it from there. And I always tell them, contact law enforcement. Like, that's what we're here for. This is our job. I would rather do this and prevent it from happening. If I prevent one, I think it's probably a win because of the amount of resources that go into investigating it, and then also the stress that the families go through in these types of incidents. So some of the other resources that are online. A lot of these are on the ICAC internet that the MSP have, but all these resources, they have different things. They have, there's even different apps that you can purchase to help monitor phones. I think some of them even look for signs of grooming. They look for inappropriate photos if the child's trying to access inappropriate things. And like they said earlier, this starts with parents. Like we can't do that for the kids. Like we need the parents to do it. It's the only way to prevent this. So I don't really want to be going to do internet safety presentations to first and second graders. So this is the okay to say posters that we put up in the schools. And unless anybody else has anything, we're going to move on to our other local resources that took the time to come here tonight. So we have Up North Prevention. Did you want to talk about anything? Kind of give a quick rundown. Do you want me to bring the mic down, or can you just yell it out? Do we have anyone still here from Alcona Health Center? Or did they left? Okay. So who was coming up from Hope Shores Alliance? You just want to do it from there? You want a mic? Okay. No, I don't think he turned it on.
Hi, everybody. Better? Okay. My name is Janine. I'm with Hope Shores Alliance. If you haven't heard of us, we're working with self-identified survivors of stalking sexual, dating, and domestic violence. So a lot of what we were hearing is why people come to our services, because they're free and confidential. We're working with survivors across the lifespan, so that is meaning the very youngest of children to our grandparents. One of the things that didn't get touched on too much is about predators and how for them it's about power and control. So much of what we're talking about of making sure that our youngest children understand what consent is, right? And we don't even have to bring in sexuality to talk about that. It's just, if I'm playing on the swings with my friends and they want to go play on the seesaw, I know I can't force my friends to play with me, right? You have to ask and get that consent. It does. It does get more complicated as our kids get older, right? Talking about sex and sexuality is a difficult thing. So if that is something you're struggling with your families, please reach out to Hope Shores Alliance. Like I said, our services are free. They are confidential. We can work with survivors independently of their parents from the age of 14 and up. But of course, we want to work with the families as a whole to come up with a plan that's safer for them. Also, just a tip as we're talking so much about, how vulnerable we can be to predators when we don't have that self-confidence. I would also make sure that we are looking at ourselves and how we talk about ourselves, because a lot of times we have these conversations with our kids and we talk about our children differently than we do ourselves, right? If we're saying unkind things about ourselves, we're teaching our children that that's okay. If we say unkind things about their peers and how they look, if we demean their peers, then that is something that's going to impact them as well. So, yes, we definitely encourage people to reach out to us. Again, services are free and confidential, and we would love to be able to help folks on their journey. Thank you.
So next we have the Children's Advocacy Center. Law enforcement works with them on a regular basis. Anything that's related to children when they need to be interviewed, they do a phenomenal job talking to kids. And I think Sarah here that's going to talk has said you've done, over 800 interviews?
Yeah, I'm well over 800 and experienced about at least 1,200 myself, whether interviewing or being part of that. So my name is Sarah. I'm with the Children's Advocacy Center of Northeast Michigan. So just like Trooper Kunis said, a lot of our services start with kind of a referral. So a child makes a disclosure and then they decide that, and we work with kids from 0 all the way up through 17 years of age. So depending on what's happened in that child's life, we provide that initial most important thing, which is a developmentally appropriate, what we call a forensic interview. This gives a child an opportunity, in their own words, with people who are trained to ask the appropriate questions, to make that statement, so that once that's completed, there's an investigation involved. So a little bit about our numbers is, I just went through them. So the Advocacy Center has actually been around since 2013, and there have been 1,627 interviews completed in that time period. I started in 2016. There's actually been, since 2016, about 1,200. And that's in a 4-county area. That's Alpena, Alcona, Presque Isle, and Montmorency. Sometimes we have some outside agencies. But not just providing those interviews in a safe place for children to give those statements, but also opportunities to help parents or caregivers cope with these situations, and what do we do? How do we work with our children? How do we protect our children from online predators? The things that I've experienced in the last 7 years is pretty amazing, and if people don't realize, it's out there. We do this every day. I have one tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. Multiple times a week, something's happened to a child, or a child's made a statement, and it could be a teenager, it could be a 9-year-old, it could be a 4-year-old. And so these things do happen, and we want to be there to support the family as it goes through the system. We want kids to know that coming to our agency, families coming to our agency, you're not in trouble there. You're there because something's happened, and we want to be able to help you through that process. Some things that I've learned over the years is with kids, it doesn't matter who the kid is, where they came from, who the family is. It can happen to anyone. And it happens, it's usually somebody you know, somebody they know. Be aware, keep those doors open, check on your kids. They're always going to find ways to have access to social media, but if you can have that open conversation with them, be a part of their lives. I know Roblox sounds super boring and terrible, but it actually could be kind of fun. But that's one way, hanging out with my kids, we play with those games, and it opens up a whole new world. Now the deal is we have to play dominoes later, but trying to engage them in the things that they do. So we do have some information. A lot of the information presented here today, I've seen it 50 times over in my own office. I've talked to kids about being exploited. We've had the few outside of the counties from other areas, but it usually starts with somebody they know. They share the picture, and then that person starts to extort them and use that power and control. I've seen lots in high school. I've seen it down to 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds. If a child has access to a tablet, keeping an eye on that information. What are they looking for? What are they doing? But on that note, a couple of the websites that they do talk about, we do have ways that we can help with those CSAM pictures, things like that. We do have resources that we can help families get those images removed, get that information, get some mental health, the trauma-informed counselors. We have medical providers. We have all different things that we can do to help families get through this process. So thank you for presenting this today. And
All right, well, thanks for coming out. Now's the time if anybody has any kind of questions. Lee's going to get his steps in if we have questions. And we'll do our best to answer them.
So those papers that you guys had, that you had lifted up off of the table, are you going to post those around the high school for high schoolers to see, or at the junior high for the junior high kids?
What papers are you talking about again?
The papers you were, she had lifted up, it was closer towards the middle of the presentation, with the information on the top, and I think there was a QR code.
I'm not sure which one of us had that.
I think you're probably talking about us, we had some cash sheets out there, so there was, yeah, that right there, so that's to take it down, that's on our paper, so that is out there, so I have a bunch of information with QR codes, so it's take it down, teaching kids healthy relationships, even when they're little, like Janine said, just sharing, it can be age appropriate, it doesn't have to be sex, it can be healthy relationship, healthy human being things. So we do have that up there as well, grooming, all of those. Also, the paper that about the removing photos, if they have been posted for like if we have friends who would need something taken down, or if we have people who we can go, hey, we need help, here's this. Are you gonna post those as well, or?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll get with Principal Bordage in the morning.
Put them up on the tax strips, put them in all the junction areas, when we move old things and put those up, it's always good. Way to keep the traffic, so that they're seeing it, like, when you're walking up the main road, you're saying, oh, my garage has those tax strips there. So that's where your eyes automatically go, so we try to keep them at all the main corridors where visibility is high.
That website is also if you are over 18, but you may have, because again, with the generation
questions. Anybody else questions? Okay. I want to thank our law enforcement partners for putting this together and hosting it for us tonight. Really important topic that I hope a lot of folks take advantage of the information. And one of the things that you're going to see from the school district is the message to report, not repost. That goes for safety issues as well as items of exploitation. We need people to speak up. You need to, if you know somebody that's in a situation like this, reach out to a trusted adult or peer-to-peer, encourage them to take steps to protect themselves and to help them to make the best choice possible. If they haven't, then we're working on trying to fix the situation. There are people in our community that are trained professionals that are ready to help, and so we encourage our kids to speak to one of them when you need assistance.
One more quick thing, they took Officer Culligan's microphone away because they don't want him getting long-winded, but he wanted to bring up an issue that we've had as well with the students continue to share like school threats that aren't from the area rather than reporting them to law enforcement. They are reposting them, and they're trying to track it down, and it says Lake City. So then he contacts Lake City PD, and they say, yeah, we already got that one. It's actually out of Lake City, Florida. So we want the kids to be aware, instead of reposting these threats that you don't know where they originated from, you don't know what school, the city, the state, anything, rather than reposting it, go to Officer Culligan. Go to Deputy Wisniewski and say, look, I've been seeing this, my friends are posting it, what do you know about it? Like, is this something we need? You're scaring everybody for nothing. So, and it causes a lot of resources to get tied up trying to track down where that came from, and it's not even in our area. So, does that about cover? Okay. So I'd like to thank everyone that came out. I was hoping we'd get a bigger turnout, so you guys are just going to have to do your best to, make it sound like the place is packed when you give us a round of applause, I guess. So I'd like to thank everyone that helped put this together. We took a lot of time to do this, so hopefully there's a lot of good information that people will absorb. So thank you.